Hello users, and welcome to another episodic installation of Halo ampersand chill. So I might be a little low energy. It's actually, I'm recording this at 4 a.m. and I'm trying a new sleeping routine, but I'm going to talk about the sleeping routine in another video. But this is the first video that I'm going to record whilst performing this new sleeping routine, and it requires waking up in the middle of the night for about an hour, maybe two. And so I thought, what better way to kill the time than to record one of these fuckers? And I've got something specific on my mind, and that is right-wing psychopathy. I've been making these Above It All videos for a while now, since January. And, you know, I've noticed the elevation in right-wing rhetoric because a lot of people who interact with a lot of this stuff don't... I've never played this level. Don't necessarily directly interact with right-wingers often. They'll just see them hypothetically or maybe see them in comments. But, you know, given that I am a YouTube person and I try to read all my comments, you know, I've been getting an amazing, like, very, very horrifyingly bizarre, like a very high rate of people that are actively wishing death on me, and then also wishing death on all protesters. And I find that to be bizarre, and that's just something I want to talk about tonight, because it's just strange. It's really bizarre that we're at a point right now in society where there's just a solid 20% of the population that literally wants to kill everyone else. And it's increasingly more and more, and I find it like the thing that I want to think about here is that ever since I've been doing these videos, and especially since the primary's been over, the rhetoric from these people has accelerated tremendously. Like, I've been very used to, like, I've been swatted by neo-Nazis. I've been, you know, directly in very combative zones with neo-Nazis. I've been stalked. You know, I've gone through a lot of shit over the course of the years here. But I have never seen rhetoric that is so refined in its desires to kill people than I have now. And it's just it's very strange. Like this is a very much so unfinished thought process. I don't know what to think about it. It's, you know, it's fascinating that there's just this contingent of 20% of the population of the United States of America that like that's the thing, is like this is all like so weird. Like, I make YouTube videos, right? Like, this is just like people, like, they're like searching for this specifically to attack people that are covering content. Like, the thing that got me thinking about this was the death of Summer Taylor in Seattle. And, like, I'm getting, like hundreds of comments from people, even on other videos, that are, like, detailing murdering me. And I've been doxxed, but I moved since I've been doxxed. So there's a lot of people that have been sending me my old home address, as if that's, like, scary. It's like, first of all, I've already been swatted. So unless you're going to come to me and try to kill me personally, I'm sorry, I'm not interested. Like, I've already been through it. You know, I'm sorry. Oh shit, yeah, that's weird, huh? Damn, ruining my YouTube video. Jeez. I'm just gonna leave. But yeah, it's just one of those things where, like, it's just the rhetoric has been... I'm not, like, I'm a very desensitized individual. You know, like, I don't get offended really at all, like, in any, like, but it's baffling and this is the stuff I think about, is again, there's a contingent, there's like three main factions. Those that are not racist, but engage in racism. There are those that are specifically against racism, which is maybe 15% of the population. And then there's about 20% of the population that's been organized for decades that is very vehemently pro-racism. And they feel that, like, there's the fleetingness, like, culture is leaving them. That's what this whole Make America Great Again thing is about, is like they're losing culture. The culture war, as they may say. They're losing culture. And really the only way that they can feel like to preserve culture is through violence. Through making people afraid of them. For like, and that's the thing that the root of this is that, like, these people that are, like, sending me death threats every day, this is a different brand of psychopath that I am not necessarily directly familiar with. I've interacted with a lot of right-wingers in my days, you know? I'm a very experienced person when it comes to dealing with the mentality of someone who just wants to kill people based on their skin color or gender identity or sex or whatever. Like, so, I'm very used to it, the idea. But again, like, the rhetoric is the thing here. Like, people are, like, the thing that really is striking to me is they all say the same stuff. One of the, like, I guess it's hard not to call it, like, programmed talking points, right? Like, but one of the things that everyone's saying in regards to the Summer Taylor situation is, quote, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. That is the phrase that I see in at least 50% of the comments. And that's the thing that, again, like, they all say the same. Like, yeah, there's slogans amongst the left, like, all cops are bastards. Right? But, like, that's like a slogan. That's not, like, you know, like a specific dismissal of something, or a specific way to dismiss something, or a specific way of saying something. And I've noticed this again. Unless you read all of my comments, you probably won't pick up on this. And that's something that's actually super interesting, is that my YouTube channel is, you can just look at the comments and get a relatively, I think, decent understanding of the right-wing psychopathy in this country and how it affects whatever subject is being referenced. But unless you read every single one, it's hard to pick up on stuff like that. And, like, every time, like, when George Floyd was murdered, I got a lot of comments that were like, oh, he's a criminal, like, look at his record. Like, and it's like, the thing about that's so weird is the language is all the same. Like, it's very similar language. Like, that these people are, like, watching, like the right-wing news pipeline of, like, Fox News and the Trump administration, and, like, how people are programmed to say their, like, certain things and talking points and all that stuff. Like, that pipeline, like, creates these situations where you have people that all think the same and will say the same things. Like, and again, the recent one is play stupid games and win stupid prizes. It's like, it's a very specific phrase that you don't hear often. And it's weird to hear, like, fucking, you know, 80 people say that in a row. And again, the thing you have to understand here is that these are people that are going out of their way to look up this content. And then put out this extremely negative energy into it. So it's not like this is just a barometer of right-wingers in general. These are specifically right-wingers that are going out of their way to go find and bombard videos and then tweets and then other stuff in relating to this news and this information. It's a way of, like, drowning things out. And that's another thing that, like, I want to analyze here. Like, it is a way of so that if people are trying to get information, that's what they get instead. That's like some sort of, it's a, you know, that kind of tactic. It's the same tactic that I use. Like, you know, I want to get information out from an anarchist perspective. That's my tactic. Though I'm not going to like go on news and then like comment on YouTube videos, because I find that a profound waste of time. But again, the thing is, like, it's strange. And I've been thinking about this pipeline a lot lately, especially that it's diverging a lot. Ever since the Christchurch shooting, that's kind of where I gained like a very new perspective that I kind of feel I still use as a framework. In that, like, it's important to follow certain kinds of websites and media, like 8chan, for example, because the people, the neo-Nazis that came after me a couple years ago with the swatting thing I mentioned, those were from 8chan. And so I felt it like relatively valuable to monitor a lot of what these websites do. And that's just one of those things that I try to do, is I try to bring you how the right wing responds to things. That's why I like to go to these protests, or at least like look at footage of these protests and then give you a perspective of like how these protests work if you're there. Because I've been to dozens of protests, and I know not everyone has. And I've been to dozens of protests under different contexts. Some under civilians, some under journalists, some in black bloc. Like, I've been to a lot of different things in a lot of different ways, and and so I'm familiar with, approaching a protest as a journalist. I'm familiar with approaching a protest as someone dressed in black bloc. I'm familiar with approaching a protest as a random civilian. And I know how those different perspectives collide, and I see what the differences are and the similarities are. So that's why I like to try to focus on what people in the right are doing, because, there's severely less, if not no at all, right-wing civilians that go to protests. That's something that's kind of been propping up a little bit more lately. But usually people that are right-wing that go to protests are going to be violent. I would say like 80 to 90% of the time, they're going to be there with the express intent to cause or to be ready for violence. But again, I've been seeing that kind of mindset, it's been taking over the casual right-wing over the last couple years. And that's the thing, is like over the last like 3 months, I feel like regular conservatives at this point, like people that would say, I abhor violence, they're now endorsing murder, like in this interstate thing. Like, the road is closed. That is the end of the conversation, as far as like any logical individual is concerned. So it's baffling and strange. It's baffling and strange that you see regular conservatives, right? Like, oh, I don't believe in murder. I believe in law and order. Like, the same people that in one breath say law and order are in another breath saying, yeah, drive on a closed road as long as you kill people. And that's the thing here that I'm like, I'm just thinking out loud. This is not a synthesis of any kind. This is like 4 in the morning. I'm, having a real one. But like, the thing about it that I'm trying to understand here is that, like, how murder gets justified in media and public circles. Like, how is that happening? How do people who consider themselves well-adjusted, socially adjusted, like, oh, I'm a conservative. What are you conserving? Oh, traditional values, my heritage, my family. Like, how you can get from that to just endorsing murder. Like, it's fascinating to me, because it's a pipeline. Like, that's the thing, is it's a racket. The right wing, like, as a project in this country, it is incentivizing and producing these talking points and this kind of understanding. It's like, yes, killing people in racist acts of violence, that's okay. Not only is that okay, but that's something to endorse. That's something to egg on. That's something to get more of to happen in these people's minds. And it's demented. It's absolutely demented. And again, it's just, I can't wrap my mind around it. It's at the point where I can't keep up with the psychopathy of the right wing. Like, I thought I had a lot of this figured out before the George Floyd thing happened. You know? And then there was this new revitalized resurgence of protesting in this country. And the right wing has reacted to that in such a way. Like, it's a predictable way, but I did not expect them to get so far down the rabbit hole of just egging on. You know, they like to call it civil war, but really it's just terrorism. Like, we have what maybe 5 years ago was 10% of this cohort. Well, not of this cohort, but of the country, like 10% that makes up this cohort. But like now we've got like 15 to 20% of people that 5 years ago would just say, "Oh, I'm a small government conservative." You've got those people just literally calling for violence. And again, you know, I'm going off of a, you know, I look at news. I try to watch other news outlets. I use YouTube comments as one barometer. I watch other videos. I look at Twitter as another barometer. I have specific family members that I use as some barometer. Like, I've got like a boomer in my family that like is a fucking really bizarre Trump supporter. And they were less of a Trump supporter 3 months ago than they are now. And now I get this boomer family member. I like, you know, other people tell me that they post on Facebook about like how the black people are going to come and kill them. And it's like, these people, like, this is like a 50-year-old who's genuinely convinced that like black people are going to like roam through the streets and kill her. Right? Like, this is like, and this is where it starts. So it's like the whole like black people are going to come kill you. You got to prepare yourself. You got to get ready. You got to fight back. And then that gets them to the point where they endorse murder. Like, even if it's like, you know, a black person killing a white person. You know, they're going to focus on, ooh, they're black. It doesn't fit the narrative. The narrative is this weird... The narrative is like another term that I didn't know was such a big deal to conservatives. They just love this idea of the narrative. As in, like, I don't know. It's hard to understand because they all have different ideas of it. So when a lot of people say things like the narrative, like they're going, like, it's just weird. I don't quite understand that one yet, but I've been trying to figure it out. But like, again, you've got like the most, like the most what's the word? I'm really tired, so bear with me. But like the people that are like the least of concern, like the boomers, like I said, like the boomers, like 50 years old, looks at Facebook, and is just convinced that like every night she's like scared that black people are gonna like break into her house and kill her and her family, and this is a legitimate concern for this person, and it's weird, but that's like the auspices that the right is funneling this pipeline into to justify war and violence and assault and death and murder. So like you've got like the, you know, the regular conservatives, and there is a difference between the outright neo-Nazis and the regular conservatives. It's a very small difference and increasingly less noticeable, like what the differences are. Like I said, like small, like the regular conservatives at this point are just calling for murder all over the place. Like, and that's the thing, is like it's the line between conservatism and the KKK is blurred to the point where it's hard to tell. Like, you see like conservatives, you know, say America first, Trump, 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 Trump. Oh, that's not a Nazi logo. Oh no, that one's also not a Nazi logo. All these Nazi references aren't really Nazi references. No, no, no. I'm a small fucking government conservative. Like, the line is getting blurred to the point of where it's indistinguishable between a regular conservative and a neo-Nazi or a KKK Klansman. You know, that's the thing that it's like, and it's always been like one, you know, domino away from being that, and it's been in that like perpetual state for a long time, at least since the 1980s. It's been in this kind of state, But we're at the point now where, again, I'm just thinking out loud here. We're at the point, though, where it's like, it's getting to the point where, like, the conservative base, it's not the biggest thing in the world, but this is why I say it's not just enough to be not racist. You must specifically be against racism. You must be anti-racist. Because, like, there's 20% of the population that wants to kill everyone else. The MAGA, KKK, Nazi crowd, you know, that is using this moment to push white supremacy. There's that crowd. And then, like, I emphasize on this, there's only 15-ish% of the population that's anti-racist. You have a majority and plurality of the population that is just not racist. Like, they go like, oh, racism's bad, and I you know, and all that stuff. And it's like, but they also will say things like, oh, protesters shouldn't say no justice, no peace, because that offends my sensibilities. Or like the liberal mindset, you know? And there's there's a lot of degrees of liberal, but I'm not, this video is more about right-wing psychopathy than liberals. I'll get into liberals later. I've gotten into liberals many times, but I'll save that for another time. But again, like, the lines here, you know, if you want to break it up into other chunks, like, again, there's, like, the 10% Nazi population, and that's just taking over the overall 20 to 25% that's, like, conservative-minded. The straight-up Nazi propaganda machines are just literally blurring those lines. To the point where I see boomers in my family, people tell me that they post on Facebook about black people trying to, like, kill them, when it's like they live in like a rural neighborhood with like maybe 4 black people there. You know, it's like, it's weird that you've like, when you can convince seemingly regular people that like you'd see in a grocery store, right? You can convince them that 1, germs don't exist for, you know, the coronavirus thing. So 1, germs do not exist. They're not real. Soap is fake news. And then also black people are on the hunt for them. Black people are roaming the streets. This whole focusing on riots and looting, like this whole, like, it's a very bizarre distraction, but like this focus on it has been, like, the liberal media and CNN and MSNBC have been focusing on this, and then Fox News responds to that, saying, oh, look, the liberals are saying that there's looting and rioting, the black people are running rampant, and then you've got, you know, seemingly regular people just advocating to kill black people because they think that black people are going to kill them. You know, and that's it's so strange. It is so, it's just bizarre. Like, I don't know how to keep up with it. I wish I could give you some sort of, like, analysis here. I wish I could tell you, like, you know, how to navigate this political environment, but I don't have any of these answers. And especially as a trans person, like, I'm used to getting death threats as it is. Like, I've gotten death threats, like, all the fuck. That's really funny. I've gotten death threats fucking at least on a daily basis for, like, the last, like, 5 or 6 months. Ever really since I started doing Above It All, I've gotten a lot more death threats. But again, I've been swatted before. I've had Nazis try to kill me before. Like, this is not, like, a ball game that I am inexperienced at, to say the least. I'm very used to right-wing violence, but I'm not used to the frequency and the style of this right-wing violence. It's a lot scarier because I'm seeing it bleed out to the point where, like, they're just calling to openly kill black people. They're like openly calling to kill, like, immigrants, like, not like just put in concentration camps, but outright just kill. Like it's I can't keep up with it, and it's a very scary trend. And so, like, I have a prediction. My teammate's not making that easy. I have a prediction that if Trump does lose this election, I do think that that's going to be weaponized, and I do think that there's going to be a lot of violence as a result of that. And I'm worried about that. I do think Trump will lose this election. You know, obviously I don't need to say this, but Biden's garbage, and it's totally possible that Trump can squeak by. But I do think that Trump will lose this election. I don't think the numbers are there for him. I really just don't. And I think that the people that are relying on Trump mainstreaming violence, I think those people are going to be, like, they're already feeling like this is like a last opportunity moment for fascism. And it kind of is in a lot of ways. It kind of is. And so I feel like if Trump does lose, that could be kind of like a sign that the war has been lost. The culture war, as it stands. And who knows, you know, they could also be paving the way for Tom Cotton in 2024. You know, it could get worse, and it could always get worse. You have to understand, things could get worse at literally any point, for any reason, at any time, you know, like, but like right now, this is like, you know, there's going to be a lot of violence, I think, if Trump loses the election. There's already a lot of violence. Black Lives Matter right now is the biggest civil rights, like organization, or not, or like protest auspices since, you know, MLK and the civil rights movement. This is the biggest in history, at least in American history, potentially global. And so, like, we're in unprecedented times here. Like, you know, like, I know from reading history that, you know, during the Civil War era, or the Civil Rights era, people were sending death threats to, you know, MLK Jr. and activists and protesters every day, even the CIA and all that stuff. They were, like, it was a huge machine. And I need to study more of that, honestly, because that's it's happening. Where, like, again, you're seeing regular, at least what they would think of themselves as regular and not, like, activated Nazi soldiers, which is what they are at this point. But they would conceive of themselves as, like, oh, regular God-fearing Americans or whatever. You know what I mean? And so, like, this is, like, they're, like, literally parroting America First Nazi propaganda. They're saying that, oh, protesters should be killed because they're not protesting correctly, even though they, like, the road was closed to make way for them as a safety hazard, and like, so, like, and no one's ever protesting correctly. This all goes back to something that MLK, that I was taught in school about MLK Jr., was that he was a peaceful protester that fixed racism via nonviolence. When, like, you look at his life, and before he was murdered, you know, he didn't just, like, disappear in a time machine and, like, go back to the future because he fixed racism here and he not go back to his homeworld, right? Like, he was murdered, right? Like the idea that, like, I was taught in school that he fixed racism via nonviolence. Dude, the guy was murdered, and near the end of his life, he was explicitly pro-violence because he realized that there was no progress, like, and that nothing was happening. There was literally no, like, in a lot of ways, people were backtracking in progress. And, like, so he realized that. And that's why you have one of the quotes that I appreciate. Riots are the voices of the unheard. Which I think is a very, very good quote. But that's how you get to that kind of rhetoric from MLK Jr. But then his history has been whitewashed. Like, people tell you, oh, he was a peaceful protester because they want you to protest correctly. What is protesting correctly? If protesting does not cause a disruption, what does it do? What are you protesting? If there's no disruption, what are you protesting? This is weird. Like, if you're just, like, going out there, like, and saying, like, you know, no justice, no peace, in, like, a designated area with, like, a permit, it's like, that's barely a protest. You know what I mean? Like, in order to protest, you need to disrupt something. And usually protests are in roads and streets. And so this whole idea that, like, oh, if you're in the street during a protest, a street that's been closed off for 3 weeks, mind you. Like, that's one of the things here. It's like, this is not, like, this is, like, pure psychopathy in the sense that, like, the road's been closed for 3 weeks. This isn't like it's a new information. It's not like this was happening this night. It was like this for a month. Like, you know? But yet they spin it into, oh, you're on the street. Oh, you're protesting. There's always, you're doing something wrong. The victim blaming kind of narrative. The idea that, oh, you shouldn't have worn that short skirt. You know, like that kind of mentality and it's very deep in the right wing right now. My connection is seemingly shit. And it's scary. It's really scary. And I don't really have, like, you know, any synthesis here. I'm just kind of talking out loud. But it is really, really scary to live in this environment, especially as a trans person. Like, as a trans person, I know I've been the victim of hate crimes before. Like I said, I've been swatted. I've been assaulted by Nazis before. So, like, and I know I'm fully prepared for it to get worse. I've gotten to the point where I am convinced that I'm going to die in a hate crime. And maybe that's unhealthy living. And maybe you can say it's like the exact desired effect. But in a sense, it's liberating. I don't necessarily fear being killed or being injured for who I am or what I say. You know, it's at the point where as soon as that started happening to me, you know, having police raid my home, you know, and stuff like that, like, as soon as that started happening to me, I kind of realized that this is the path I was going down. And if it's not something I was content with, I wouldn't be going down this path. And I'm going to wind this up here. But if I weren't content with it, if I weren't prepared for it in a way, and obviously, you know, I don't want to die or anything, but it's like the idea that I'm going to be pressured into silence by people is just, I don't play that game. And that's why I'm increasingly in favor of gun ownership as far as socialism is concerned, because I do think it is a necessary component in the United States of America. I don't think the United States of America will ever be able to ban guns effectively. I don't think that's going to happen. I think especially it's not going to happen before a boiling point. We're reaching a boil. We're at 210 degrees Fahrenheit. We're about to reach the boil. And self-defense and defending your family is going to be extremely important going forward. But yeah, I'm going to try to wrap this up here. But again, we're reaching unprecedented levels of out and about fascism that I've never seen, and I've only seen in history. You know, people like to say, like, oh, people have been comparing Trump to Hitler ever since he was elected. Well, yeah, because there's been, like, a through line that's been very symmetrical with history. And we're at that point now where we're starting to reach the late 1930s in any sort of, like, comparative roadmap. We're at the late 1930s. And then you've got the president saying America first, which is a Nazi slogan. American Nazis were saying that as a reason to want to avoid going to war. And you're seeing all this stuff, and again, it's getting to the point where, like, the only historical analog is the 1930s. We can't historicize this to the 1960s anymore. We've accelerated beyond the 1960s. You know, like, there really is very little historical analog here. And it's scary. It's scary. Like, again, as a trans person, I know that, like, I've been getting death threats on at least a weekly basis for years, ever since I came out. Really? I've at least once a week had someone say that I should kill myself, or they're going to kill me, or they're going to bully me until I kill myself, or all that stupid shit. But it's at the point where it's like, nowadays, I open my email, you know, I look at my YouTube comments, I'm getting one every 6 hours. And it's, you know, it's weird. It's definitely strange. And I know it's because there's like I'm getting more recognized, I'm getting more popular, I'm getting my voice out there more, I'm casting a wider net, and so that's like a obvious kind of result. But then there's also the rhetoric of it that's a lot more, like, it's a lot more refined. Like, before it would just be like, let epic, you know, are you gonna kill yourself by 30? Ha 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 ha, I'm gonna do it for you. Like, you know, like, just like really cringy, like shit you'd hear on Xbox Live, you know? Like, I'm playing Halo here. But now it's at the point where I'm getting, like, essays about, like, you know, people are, like, writing fan fictions about murdering me, and then, like, in my murder they can, you know, create a new, like, nation for the white man. And it's like, what the fuck are you on? Like, what are you on, bro? And it's just, I've never seen this stuff before, and it's definitely heating with the moment. And it's scary. I don't know. It's scary. It's really fucking scary. So I don't know what else to say. I've just been kind of rambling. But yeah, right-wing psychopathy is at an all-time high. And tread lightly, y'all. Be safe. You know, if you're going to do anything that has any sort of potential pushback, you got to be ready for it. You got to know what you're getting into. And if you're not capable of getting into it, I mean, check me out. I'll try to guide you through my experiences. But yeah, I mean, we need more anti-racists. That's just what we need. We don't have the good enough numbers of people that are extremely against racism and are willing to act upon that belief. You know, this whole both sidesism from the centrists, that's like that is, I'm sorry, that's useless. At this point, the centrists are irrelevant. They might have like the Biden campaign as their like bastion of relevance here, but at this point, it is anti-racists versus racists. You know, like at this point, this is what's happening in the streets. You're having right-wingers shooting at left-wingers and stuff like that, and all these demonstrations, and then, you know, and it's again, it's horrifying. And obviously, we know that from history, the center will always break for fascism before they break for socialism. And that's why we need to spend this time now, before there's any sort of organized armed conflict or anything, if that is going to happen, which I'm convinced can happen. I'm not convinced that it will happen, but I think that the situation, historically speaking, for it to occur is here. And so it could very well happen. We're at a boiling point. Like I said, we're at 210 degrees Fahrenheit. You know, we're at 98 degrees Celsius. And yeah, I don't know. Anyway, next video, I'm probably going to talk more about my sleep schedule. I'm really, you know, tired. It's 5 a.m. now. So I'd like to thank you for watching this. If you have any sort of insight, you know, these videos get bombarded a lot less. So, I mean, I'm trying to read comments, you know, but again, it's hard. So, but if you have any insight, if you have anything you want to share, let me know. If you have any topics you want me to touch on, you know, let me know. And thank you for listening. And y'all have a good night or morning or day or whatever. Thank you.